What do you need to build a successful sales team? Attitude? Confidence? Yes, all those things are important, but there's one thing that you have to have in order to build a successful business team. In this episode, I'm going to show you the one thing no sales team can be successful without. Welcome back to the Nebraska Entrepreneur, the podcast for Nebraska entrepreneurs who seek candid guidance from Midwest leadership. I'm Steve Kanne. I've been a successful entrepreneur in Nebraska for over 20 years, helping and mentoring entrepreneurs and business leaders across the country. In this episode, we're revealing the single most important thing no sales team can be successful without. Joining us is one of the most successful salespeople in Omaha, which is saying something considering Omaha has more millionaires per capita than any other city. My friend Jeff, founder of Big Exit. Jeff, thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate you coming and taking time. You know, you and I have had a lot of conversations about sales teams and building sales teams, successful teams. How did you go about, deciding what your sales team wanted, what you wanted it to look like?
Yeah, good question, and thanks for having me on. Happy to share what I know in my world. This was probably back in 2005, and I think at one point we might have grown our sales team to 35 salespeople, which, pain in the butt people like myself, that's a lot to manage. Mm-hmm. But I really think, I think attitude is probably one of the most important things about, kind of like qualities that people want. Mm-hmm. Kind of like in life, if you have the right attitude, I mean, generally I think it's just something that needs to be there. I think commission structures are really important. I have dealt a lot with commission structures in the past, and I think in short, they need to incentivize certain behaviors and success of the company. Right. And I always say, hey, salespeople, nothing happens in the world until someone sells something. And, so I'm a sales guy. I've always been one. I'll always be one. But I think maybe the question was broader in the sense of what were we thinking? I mean, we were in an industry that had a lot of run room, and we had products that were good. And it was a matter of getting in front of the right people and giving them the right sales presentation to help their business grow. Mm-hmm. And, we kind of knew that our model would work, and it's just a matter of finding enough good salespeople. Okay. So a couple thoughts. The attitude, which is to me huge, right? Bill, I've led, the last almost 25 years now, I've led our sales team at Prime off and on. Led it early on, then stepped away, did some operational things, and then got back in it, hired a sales leader. Didn't work out so well. I got back in it again, and now today I lead our IT sales team. But so when I'm thinking about how I'm going to build the team, and the type of people I want, I definitely look at attitude. And some of the qualities, though, that when you say attitude, what are some of the qualities that you think that need to be present for them to be on your team? Well, I think, you're communicating with someone else, and you actually have to have communication skills. If you're in person, I think it's easier to read the room, mm-hmm. the person. If you're over the phone, which a lot of our sales at that time were over the phone, it's more challenging. You have to ask good questions, and you really have to listen. Obviously, listening, critical. You're referring to like the attitude piece, though, right? Yeah,
specifically the attitude. The qualities around that. Maybe it's not even just the attitude, but the qualities they possess.
I mean, in sales, you got to be a go-getter. So, you got to have an attitude that I'm going to win. Okay. When I interviewed people and they said, so how much PTO do we get? And this, I was like, okay, you got to go. Mm-hmm. I wanted salespeople that wanted to say, if I really kick some serious butt, how much money can I make? And I would say, well, that guy over there, he's doing this. Like that was the general attitude I was looking for. I mean, in sales, you get paid for selling, and that's your role in the business. So I think you just have to be, that's probably got to be at the forefront of,
Sure.
of attitude. Because if you're not confident in sales, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And, you should get the heck out of sales.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I started in sales in 1996, so I'm dating myself now, I didn't know anything about sales. I didn't even know anything about technology, the product I was expected to sell. And my first year was brutal. And it was all self-taught, right? To learn how to sell, but I possessed a couple things: a lot of grit, work ethic, and attitude that I'm going to win. And those worked out for me. I didn't possess the social skills and the communication skills that I have today. I've developed those over time, but boy, it was a lot of hard work. So that's kind of what I look for today. Somebody who's willing to put the effort in.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you well over the years, and you certainly have grit, and I have grit too. Telling you earlier, I've worked for myself for 20 years, and there's times I made a whole bunch of money, and there's times I got kicked in the gut, and it takes grit to get up and keep going, and in sales, getting told no, go to the next one. It's a numbers game, so you have to be okay with rejection, and not everybody wants your product or thinks your product's worth it. So.
We have a sales leader at Prime today that leads our security sales, and his outlook, his attitude is the first no is the first step. Like get that no out of the way, and then next step. It's the old adage: it takes 8 or 9 calls, whatever. I don't know if that's true or not. I've heard different people say different things, but I do know from past experience that persistence pays off.
Yeah.
Persistence.
I would, definitely. Like, in our world at that time, people would call in, and we would kind of listen to what they were looking for, present a solution, send them an invoice, and then they went away. And, did they buy a list somewhere else? Did they just have more things that are more important, more urgent? Follow up, and, that being persistent is critical in sales. I mean, maybe there's people out there lucky enough that, I'm going to give you my pitch, and if you don't buy, I don't care, and I'm never going to call you again. I think they're probably leaving a lot of dollars on the table.
Yeah.
Especially when a company's spending a bunch of marketing dollars to make that phone ring like we were.
Right. Yeah, you had quite the marketing machine to generate inbound leads.
We really did. We were intentional. We spent 12 to 15% of our gross sales on marketing. I had a fascinating partner. His name was Eric, and from when I first partnered up with him when we started the business in 2005, he said I could make the phone ring all day. I just couldn't wrap my head around that. And, I kid you not, when we first started, we didn't have enough money to pay for search engine stuff. And so we had to do it the hard way, pick up the phone call, make some prospecting sales, get enough. Well, now we can spend a little bit. But when we were, closing some deals and spending money on Google, we spent I think we spent $1 million with Google in 2007. They gave me some crappy little fridge for, a gift, a present. But
for $1 million.
Yeah. Which, we were small potatoes to them.
There's people spending.
But he made, he could turn the volume up or turn the volume down and make the phone ring. Of course, those leads cost money, and you have to convert them. So we had a pretty tight management system as to tracking them, who's closing what. And then, our best closers got the best leads and the most leads.
What made them the best closers? What was the differentiator between your top tier and kind of your middle tier, or even your bottom tier? Like, you probably had those 3 levels, right?
I mean, the reality, you want the best salespeople out there, but our business model, average salespeople doing kind of average numbers, we made money, and it was a win-win. I was always one of the top salespeople just in the organizations I had, and so didn't have a lot of empathy for why don't you just make more calls, or why don't you go get smarter, or you need to listen better. But I would say the difference was just I mean, you have closers, and then you have people who can kind of close. Like, and I'm sure we've all ran across them where it's like, man, if I talk to that dude and he pitches me on something, probably going to say yes, because like he's not going to take a no. And I think it's just the level of like, come on, Steve, it's $3,000. You know, it's a test. This is small chump change in the grand scheme of things. You know, we're the best solution out there. I've told you all the reasons why. Like, are we going to do it or are we not? And you have to put kind of that closing pressure on them. Like, you know, what do I need to do to have us, you know, do this today? God, I just would like a little better price or what? It's like, seriously? Okay. So if I call my manager and I get you a little gift certificate off, you're going to do it? Yeah. I think it's just that closing thing. I mean, there's probably some other things that maybe don't stick out as much, but you had really, I mean, the top salespeople were the best closers. Every now and then they get lucky in our business where you get a big order and then it turned into a repeat customer. They weren't necessarily a great closer, but they closed that one right client. You know, probably all had that.
Yeah, they hit the jackpot,
sure,
so to speak. That always happens. So processes, think about that. Like, so to grow from 0 to 30 salespeople, I imagine you couldn't do that without process, some sort of sales process. You had your marketing process to make the phone ring, but then I would imagine you had some sort of process that you wanted your team to follow.
Yeah.
So everybody was kind of speaking the same language, talking the same things.
In this day, we had a receptionist, and the receptionist would say, well, hi, Steve, thanks for calling. You know, what can we help you out with today? And you would say, I'm looking for a adjustable rate mortgage list. And she would say, okay, great. Let me get you back to somebody that could help you. And she would transfer the call, and she'd say, Jeff, Steve is calling in. He's looking for an adjustable rate mortgage list, and he's a mortgage lender. And that little information was helpful, because when I said, hey, Steve, yeah, Mandy said you're looking for an adjustable rate mortgage list. So you know, what do you think of the interest rates that jumped up last month or something? And you had to develop rapport. You had to kind of ask questions as to how their business worked and what was a good customer for them. And then, you know, we had all kinds of data. So our data people, the programmers in the back, we could just tell them what the offer was, and they could build a list that would work. Our job was just to get an order out of the customer. Didn't really matter how small, because in our world, it started small, and then when it worked, they went a little bigger, and then it went a little bigger. So the pass off and some of that detail, listening, and just like my partner, Eric, he was a great trainer.
Okay.
Like he had patience for training. He did most of our sales training, and I learned a lot of my sales skills from him. So, I mean, he's just a fascinating individual.
So he was the guy telling them to ask these questions.
Yeah.
Ask this question to build rapport. Say this to build rapport. Because the thing is, as soon as you get on the phone with somebody like that, they're looking for a mortgage list, you can't sound like an idiot, right? You have to establish yourself as a thought leader, right?
Yeah. I mean, some people would call us up and say, hey, I want to place an order. Here's what I want. And we, you know, like you're at a drive-through at McDonald's. You want to, you know, 1 through 8. Yeah. We're like, well, we're not McDonald's. You don't, you know, that's not how our business works. Tell me about your customers. You know, what are they, how much are they going to spend? Why are they going to go with you? We would custom build the list.
Sure.
So, you know, they might call up and say, I just need a list of females over the age of 50. I said, well, great, we can do that. But we should get you a better list that's more targeted. Maybe females that shop online, or, you know, whatever, depending on what the offer is.
Now you're building value.
And we also would say no. Like one of the things he taught was, he said no.
You would say no.
No is a very powerful word in sales.
It's very hard for a lot of salespeople to say no.
Yeah.
Especially like for you, I don't know how about you, but when we started our business, we didn't say no at all. We just took everything because we were new, right? We needed the revenue. But now we say no a lot. It's got to fit. But you can't, to your point, it's hard to build value, and it's hard to teach your sales team to build value if they never say no, if they really don't understand that piece of it. So you're in a much different industry today. You own a business brokerage firm, and you've got some probably BD people that work for you. How you talked about commission and making sure you pay people, that you incentivize the behavior you want. Talk a little bit more about kind of how that works. Like, do you do it as a percentage of revenue? Do you do it as a percentage of margin, percentage of net income? How do you, and every industry is going to be different.
Sure.
I get it. But just overall, just talk about incentivizing that behavior.
I'll tell you what we did at the beginning, and I'll preface it by saying, listen, I think every business is a little bit different, because sometimes once you get a customer and they buy from you, they're a customer for life, and they don't have anything to do with the salespeople. It's all about processing people, right? So like your IT managed business, you go get the account, okay? If the people are doing their job and happy with the service, you probably keep that account for a long time.
Yep.
Not all sales jobs and businesses are
Right.
are that way, but. Let's see, lost my thought. What specifically the question?
Just around the incentives.
Incentives,
right?
okay.
Incentivizing people.
Pay. What I did is I said, listen, you can make a lot of money here, but I'm not going to pay you a big fat base salary. And so, understanding that I generally wanted younger, the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Old dogs that came out of the data industry sold a different way than we did. And so really, I didn't want to hire the people from the data industry, because they were like order takers.
Yeah.
And so we did, we didn't pay them a whole lot for a guarantee, but it was or commission. And at the beginning, it's going to take them a little bit of time to get up and going. So we would basically give them enough to pay their bills and get by, but they certainly weren't getting rich going out and buying new cars or houses or whatever it was. In my opinion, a good commission structure, and I've worked for myself, so basically if I don't close something, I don't eat. And not everyone's wired that way, okay? There's wonderful salespeople that are not wired to be business owners, but are really great salespeople. And I think at the end of the day, it's some base pay that just gives them some token of safety, and I got something. And I've been around the company 10 years. I made the company a lot of money. The company kind of in exchange is saying, hey, here's a fair salary, but we are expecting you to make more than half of your money in commissions. And that's probably a good rule of thumb for me. So I would say, if a salesperson's going to make a couple $100,000 in today's day and age, again, this is Jeff's opinion, I would pay him, a $50,000 to $75,000 salary and give him the ability to make $125,000 to $150,000 in commission. I want the salesperson that's going to go chase that carrot and wants to make $200,000, not who's okay with the $75,000 salary and maybe I make an extra $25,000 to $35,000, so I'm a little over $100,000. I want the person that's going to go chase the carrot.
There are a lot of people out there. There's a lot of good salespeople, and I've met over the years. Like I said, I've always looked at you as somebody who's in that top echelon of salespeople, and you just have a lot of the qualities you talked about earlier. A lot of the qualities, a lot of the characteristics, and some of it comes natural. In my case, I had to learn a lot of it. So then you start looking, all right, like the grit, hard work ethic, the drive. They want that much. So something else I'm just curious about too is I know you're a big fan of Zig Ziglar. You've talked about reading his books and his philosophy on it. Can you share with what strikes you that you really like that?
To me, Zig Ziglar's like the Godfather. When I first got into some real, call it big boy, big girl sales in 2005, and again, back to my partner Eric, who taught me a lot of things. We read a lot of Zig Ziglar books. And Zig Ziglar said several things that I love, but one of them was, if you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in your product, and you don't believe in your company, do something else or go somewhere else, right? And so being a successful athlete years ago, I've always been confident. And so that, kind of checked the box. But the product and the company, you got to be at the right thing. I sold out of that company because I wanted to go do something that was I was more passionate about. So I help people buy and sell businesses, and it's much more passion driven and exciting to me. And I think I'm making a bigger impact on people's lives by doing so. So I kind of found something different. And the product, if you're a salesperson inside some organization and you don't believe the product your company's selling is worth a crap, go somewhere else. Do everyone a favor. And so I think those three things are important. And, they're coming from the Godfather Ziggy himself.
So the entrepreneurs and the business leaders, founders that are watching this podcast, that's really important for them to understand is your team's got to believe in, like you said, the product and the company supporting the product or service. And that's something that I've seen the successful people do believe in it. You build a culture where everybody's bought in, right? Mm-hmm. And I talk about this in other podcasts, but you build the culture to where everybody's heart's in the business. I mean, it's in the business. And those are people that typically then are the most successful when they truly believe in it.
Yeah.
I've hired salespeople that came from organizations where they just said, I couldn't sell our product, our service or product anymore because I couldn't support it. I couldn't believe in it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, for me, as I hear, other entrepreneurs talk about their sales team and some of the struggles, it's like, is it the salesperson or is it the culture? Is it the business?
Yeah.
How are you supporting them?
Well, I knew we were going to talk about this topic, and I gave it some thought. Actually, it's a word, I don't think we've used the culture word until you just spoke about it. And, I think culture, inside sales teams especially, is critical. You either got a healthy sales, you either got a healthy culture somewhere in the middle or a bad culture. Mm-hmm. If you got a bad culture, you got all kinds of problems. There was a time in our business we had, great culture. People wanted to come work for us. Other people were out saying, we're kicking butt, taking names, we're having tons of fun, I'm making tons of money, and a whole bunch of people wanted to come work for us, and we really had this momentum going. Mm-hmm. We ran into the recession, and had a little humble pie to eat.
So many things out of our control. So many things.
Culture, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I talk about that. It's a foundation of any business, and so if you're going to look to build a sales team and scale, you got to have that right.
Yeah.
You're not going to scale.
For sure.
You've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, I think, between, I think attitude, obviously individual thing, but the culture, if I was going to make a chart, I'd put culture right up there with attitude.
There you go.
You're in a place that has a good culture and it's fun and you guys have good products and your customers are happy. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of positive there to build on.
Yeah, I've hired salespeople in the past and this is lesson learned for people that are watching this podcast, is the first 3 months they run around and they tell everybody in the business why they're not going to be successful. And I'm like, I give you 90 days to prove to me that you can do everything you said in the interview, and all you've done for 90 days is come up with excuses as to why you can't win. And I don't, in U.S. Data Days or even other organizations that you've been part of or been around, it's toxic.
Yeah.
It brings it down.
Yeah. It sounds like a loser mentality.
Yep.
We talk a lot, tell yourself a good story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't know what's really going to happen. We can either tell ourselves a good story and a good ending's going to happen, or we can tell ourselves a bad one. Sounds like that person and some of those people. And there's people out there that are like that. Mm-hmm. And not that you can't turn them around and correct them, but it's a heck of a lot easier and funner to work with people and coach people who say, you know what, I'm going to kick all kinds of butt. I got some grit. I got some perseverance. I don't know what I don't know, but let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fun. I enjoy, when I enjoy leading sales teams is when I enjoy the people that I'm leading.
Yeah.
That's the funnest.
Yeah.
If I've got to continually coach them over and over again on the same things, that's not happening.
That was one of the challenging things about salespeople, is that, you have to remind them, hey, make calls. Mm-hmm. It's a numbers game. I struggled with telling people the same thing, but again, my partner was very wise, said, Jeff, if we don't have to tell them that, they'll go work for themselves and they'll be successful. And this way, it's good for them and it's good for us, and we can win together. And I was like, you're right.
If you're coaching an organization, a company, and it's a small business, small to medium-sized business, and you're coaching them on building a sales team, if you were in that role of, say, consultant/coach, what would be some advice you'd give to founders, owners around how you deal with how you work with your sales team on dealing with rejection, right? Most of the time, especially in my business, there's a lot of pricing is always, price is always on top. It's one of the most important things, and it shouldn't be when it comes to managed IT and cybersecurity. But it always comes up, the price. But just any thoughts around how you sell around that? Because I refuse to sell on price.
I mean, thankfully for me, I'm in a service industry. And like what we do is very complex and complicated, and they don't know what we're really going to go through, and they're betting on me. So, and to answer your question, I would say, and again, this would go back to, confidence, which I would say, Steve, the best part about this, you get to work with me. And I've been here this many years, and I've done this, and I know the owner, and God forbid something doesn't go our way or whatever, and you call me, I'm going to answer the phone. Okay. I'm not, and I hope we don't have that, but if it happens, I will answer the phone and I'll handle it for you. So you get me. The company product's great, the company's great, but really I'm your guy and I'll help you. Like that's how I would handle it.
So accountability. You're saying I'm accountable and
I'm trustworthy. Like, bet on me. Okay. Yeah. It's widgets and hardware. Okay. Everyone has it. Okay. But not these other companies, you don't get me. And I would tell them why that's meaningful to them. I'm going to answer the phone if you call me at night, which, I'm not saying I'd do that today. If this happens, I'm going to do this. I mean, I think you have to, we're talking about, nothing specific. So that's how I would go about it. And, when I was in the dating world, I went about it the same way. Listen, you can, you get me. And, some people are going to say, you know what, that dude's a little too arrogant for me and I don't like him. Great. All good. Go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you got to have, you got to be confident in sales because you're going to get told no a lot. And if you get told no a lot and it brings you down and you're having a pity party, I mean, you're not going to sell.
How did you measure confidence when you have a person that comes in for their first interview?
Yeah.
And maybe your second, early on in the interviewing process, and you're going, I wonder how confident this guy or this gal is. How did you measure that?
I think I have a good answer for this because you can tell a lot about a person. Handshake, look them in the eye, just confidence. What are they wearing? How do they present themselves to the world? They would bring in their resume and I would see something on their resume that said, if you're lucky enough to hire me, I'd love to work for the business. Like something a little bit like, wow, bring that person in. I didn't care where they went to school or what they did before. And in the interview, I basically would do the same thing where I was like, if they say, God, yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. It's between, selling cars, selling data and selling that. And man, I'm going to kick butt at all of them. So I don't know. Like I just loved people that were confident. And some of those simple things, handshake, look them in the eye. When can I hear back from you? How does it sound? Are you interested in what I'm telling you? Like, kind of putting me on the spot, asking me some questions that were like, wow, that's a really good question. Those are some things that I noticed.
That's awesome. Jeff, thank you for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate your time and your knowledge, sharing your wisdom with me and the audience.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a really fun topic. Always love talking about sales, so thanks a lot.
You bet. Thanks again for joining us today. Check out the show notes for more resources, and we'll see you on the next episode.